Okay, children, here we are. I'm trying to record this, but there is some noise, so I'm trying to make sure the noise is not creeping into the recording. You may hear a crow that's been crowing for a while. It's distressed or just happy, I'm not sure. Maybe it can sense the monsoon is coming. But anyway, let's move to the next chapter. Actually, I can see if the noise is getting in. If I see quiet, then stay quiet, then the audio meter on my computer shouldn't jump up and down. Let me do that for 3 seconds. There is a small humming sound in the background which is coming from the fan, unfortunately. I'm doing this live because you can see what it takes to record these podcasts. Anyway, so we are now in chapter 7 of Gail Herman's book on what is climate change. We've learned a lot of things, and we are in chapter 7 that says, is it real? Well, you may be asking me, Grandpa, tell me, is it real? Think of all the information you have so far. You learned about energy balance. Energy has to be moved from low latitudes to high latitudes, and the energy coming in can change because the sun's Earth's orbit around the sun changes, and then there are vicious circles in the Earth system which can grow glaciers and create ice ages and can melt glaciers. So you have internal feedbacks because Earth is a system. Remember, we learned a system, just like our body is a system, and there are feedbacks in the sense, if I feel thirsty, my brain tells me drink something, so I reach out and have a cup of sip of tea. Oh, that's still warm. So you have now to decide. You learned about the greenhouse gases, and I told you repeatedly that we are burning greenhouse gas, we're burning fossil fuels and producing greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide. You learned that greenhouse gases trap the thermal energy going out. But now you have a challenge. If somebody is measuring temperatures and CO2, and somebody is telling you, look, I am very sure that CO2 is increasing, then you can ask, how do you know it is coming from us? Then we will see again. I have mentioned already that we can use some isotopes of carbon to say yes, it is coming from burning of fossil fuels. So I'll add a little bit more detail. If you're very young, if you don't understand the chemistry, don't worry about it right now. You just listen, and later on you might tell the teacher, I learned this before. Okay, so now you have another thing to worry about. Somebody tells you global mean temperatures are increasing, but you may be staying at a place where temperatures are not getting that warm. Remember, we learned about local weather, and Mumbai is warming more than Chennai or Delhi, and so on and so forth. So warming is not the same, but the global mean temperature can be going up, which means we are trapping more energy by increasing greenhouse gases. So if somebody comes along and tells you, kids, don't believe climate change, it's not real, scientists are lying to confuse you, then you have to think about all these things and say, no sir, I have learned science, chemistry, physics and energy balance, and I know that we are increasing carbon dioxide, and that tends to lead to increased energy in the earth system, and that tends to lead to warming. And the warming need not be uniform everywhere. It doesn't need to get warm because we are moving the heat around because of the winds, right? Just now I had a cup of, sip of tea here. If I put a spoon and churn it, what happens? The tea will start churning, and it will sink in the middle and rise on the edges because you have created a rotation. So we are on a rotating earth, which means we have winds, and winds can move the heat around. So it doesn't have to warm everywhere, but the entire planet, when averaged over all these cooling and warming places, the warming is much more than any cooling that may be happening somewhere where you are staying, let's say. Okay, so you have to somehow convince yourself about the science, and then we'll see in the next chapter that climate change is also a very political issue. Why? Let's say there is a person coming from an oil company. Oil company is selling oil for machines, for cars, for heating and cooling, energy producing energy and so on. And it is saying, if you keep saying climate is changing and people will stop burning oil, then I will go out of business. So this oil company person may have a motivation, may be worried about his own profit and his company's future, and maybe telling you, don't worry, climate always changes and it is again changing as usual. And you learned that climate has changed in the past. When dinosaurs were around, carbon dioxide was much, much higher than it is now, and temperatures were much warmer. There was no ice in the Arctic, there was no ice on Greenland, there was no glacier in Antarctic. What's the difference? Well, kids, we were not around either, right? So even if we burn all the fossil fuels and destroy the climate, make it very warm and create very hot temperatures for many species to survive and plants to die and so on and so forth, the planet is not going anywhere. Many species may survive, many species will go extinct. But what about us? Will we survive if it keeps warming, because we'll keep burning fossil fuels and so on? So this is what you have to think about. It's about risk, right? So let's say you are now convinced that we are burning fossil fuels, which is not very easy to convince. It's not very hard to learn this, because there are accounts and accounts of how much oil and coal and so on are being produced, and where they are sold, and which country is buying them and so on. So you can find detailed accounts of those, and everywhere that you are seeing fossil fuel being burned. That's not a thing that we can deny. CO2 is measured very carefully, accurately and precisely, and you know that it is increasing in the atmosphere. No doubt at all. Where does the doubt come in then? We have to show that the CO2 is in fact increasing because we are burning fossil fuel CO2, and we'll see how that can be done. And temperature is increasing in the global mean. We have been measuring it with satellites and so on and so forth, and there is no doubt at all. But we saw that it can go up and down from one year to another year, because ocean can take it up and belch it out and so on, or the energy can go into melting the glaciers and heating the ocean and expanding it and so on and so forth. But convince yourself, or at least learn the science of how we are measuring temperatures and where it is going. Now, what is risk then? We are talking about climate change and how it will continue to change as you grow up, because you are the kids. I am old, I may not even be around when you grow up. What is the risk then? Let's say your mother is telling you, don't eat so many candies, it's not good for you because there is sugar in it, and sugar can do bad things to your internal organs and your health, right? How do you deal with this? You ask your mother, what happens if I eat too much sugar? And she will tell you. So as you are growing up, you listen to your mother, and she convinces you that even though you don't feel anything now because you are eating too many candies, as you keep on eating candies, your brain may ask for more sugar because it likes sugar, and then you will meet more candies, and it'll want more candies. This is a vicious circle that you can get into, and slowly you will find out that your health is getting worse and worse, and then you have to stop eating sugar for sure. But will the health come back to being good? So that's another thing you have to worry about. So there is a risk that your health will get really bad if you keep eating sugar, because science shows that eating too much sugar causes health problems. It is similar if we keep on increasing CO2 by burning too many fossil fuels. We will continue to trap more thermal energy that's going out, and we are likely to create climate change problems, which are stronger cyclones, increased sea level, and hot temperatures and heat waves. As I'm recording this on May 31st of 2024, there have been many heat waves, deadly heat waves over India, and I have been giving TV interviews and newspaper interviews explaining how climate change, together with all these natural variabilities, things that change naturally from year to year, are creating these heat waves. So do you want to grow up without worrying about the risk, or do you want to think about the risk and say, let me figure out for sure if climate is changing and if we have something to do with it, and can we do something about it? Remember, I said don't get anxious, don't get scared, just learn the science and learn about what you can do and what the system is doing, and so on and so forth, what politicians are doing, because in the next chapter we'll learn about the politics of climate change. Only from the US side, but this is true everywhere. Okay, so here is what the chapter starts with. After all that long talk I gave you, scientists are always questioning their own findings, always exploring different possibilities, always retesting the results of experiments, because you do an experiment, you say this is what the experiment is doing, and somebody says please redo it and make sure the results are reproducible, so that every time you do the experiment you get the same result. And if it does, then we get some data to make sure the experiment was done right, and that this is what Mother Nature does as well, and so on and so forth. So we keep on doing this. So it's very common in science to ask questions. Is it real? Is climate change real? This is a legitimate science question, but you should also find the legitimate science answer and not do like this group is saying, climate change is a hoax, climate change is a hoax. It's a hoax which is a lie, right? So this is how scientists investigate climate science, doing experiments, collecting data, analyzing it, doing detective work, and so on. So even climate scientists don't agree on all the details of global warming, because we don't have all the necessary details to have a complete answer yet. But that's how science works. There is nothing to worry about. We will continue to collect data and keep filling the holes and the gaps in understanding and so on. But in the meantime, everything we know points to the fact that we are increasing greenhouse gases, and greenhouse gases cause warming. Okay, so that makes some people question everything climate scientists say they have proven, because not every scientist agrees on the details. Some people even say climate change is a hoax, a lie, a trick. They think there is no climate change, just weather, which changes as it always has. But you now know that climate has changed, weather has always changed, but we were not around. So we will see how long we have been around as modern human beings, as agriculturalists, and now science and technology people. It's only the last 10,000 years, as we learned before. We'll look at this again and make sure that we have all the facts before you make up your mind. You talk to your parents, teachers, neighbors, siblings, and friends to decide what you think about climate change. Okay, so we'll come back and move to the next podcast on looking at how temperatures have changed in the past, and learn that the planet is not going anywhere if we keep burning fossil fuels. We have to worry about ourselves. Okay, so hopefully the sound is okay. I'll check, make sure, and then we'll continue in the next podcast. See you.